you got 10K and you need a turbo, then I guess you've come to the right place, because in this video, I'm gonna go through 6 of the best turbo cars you can get for less than 10K. And if you're new here, my name is Brad Danger, and this is Ideal Media, and I don't know how to ride a one wheel. So go ahead and smash the subscribe button if you're new and turn on the notification bell, because we're coming to you with new content pretty much every single day. Are you ready to talk cars that have a little turbski for under 10K? Because I am. Let's go. So what's the first car that comes to mind when you think of cheap turbo car? I bet it's a Subaru WRX. They're like the king of turbo cars. And since it's probably one of the most obvious choices, we might as well talk about it first. From the WRX's introduction in 2002 to the US market to present day, WRXs have been pounding the pavement and sliding in the dirt for 20 or so years. And by doing this, they have gathered a cult following. And that's for really good reason. The lightweight sedans and wagons are powered by a small boxer 4-cylinder engine. And not only does that give these cars a very unique sound, I dare you to try to mimic the sound right now. But that sound can be heard blocks away. And once they come into view, you're sure to see big white clouds pouring from the car. And it's either the head gasket or it's the vapes.
Do you vape or do you not vape?
Nope.
And I don't think we'd have it any other way. And whether you get a bug eye or a blob eye or a hawk eye, a stink eye, or even a raptor eye, and while yes, not all generations can be had for under 10K, and that's why we have the Ideal Car Strategy, so you can buy a car like a Pro, even a Subaru, they do all have turbos. They improve throttle response and make them just that much more a son of a rally car. So what does that mean for the WRX? Well, that means that they all love mods. Started off with an exhaust to get that Subi rumble, and who could forget about the access port to turn up that boost? So, which WRX is the one to get? You can't go wrong with the bug eye or the blob eye or even the hawk eye, because all of the parts are pretty much interchangeable. But which one would I get? The hawk eye. I think that they just look the best of all the WRX gens, if you ask me. And it's made light, quick, and cool. And I honestly think it would be the most fun to start tearing up the back roads and hitting up all the local car meets. But if you really need to get something that's a little bit more livable and one that you're probably a little bit more likely to daily drive, I definitely suggest the Stink Eye, and this one for 6,500 bucks, it already has an exhaust and access port, and you'd be left with plenty of room to unlock that legendary Subi rumble. And the fact that you could get it in either a sedan or a wagon just makes the WRX an ideal choice. But another obvious choice would be the E90 or E92 BMW 335i. This Bavarian bomber one-ups the WRX's mere 240 horsepower with a twin turbski inline-6 pumping out 300 ponies. And that 3-liter is codenamed the N54, which is so good that many enthusiasts call it the modern 2JZ. Yeah, the N54 is known to be able to handle some big power, but reliably? No. This is a BMW after all, and repairs are, well, they're expensive. But either way, many tuners have gone out and pushed the limits of their 335i's, strapping on bigger turbos, catless downpipes, and a quality tune will yield 700 wheel horsepower or more. Yeah, that's enough to hang with like Hellcats. And unfortunately, to get to that sort of power numbers, it's gonna cost you at least $4,000. Luckily, the 335i can be had for under $10,000. Otherwise, it wouldn't be on this list. And so you may possibly have some cash to spare for those mods. But if you were to ask me, I'd be setting that money aside for repairs, not modifications. And so if you're interested, pick up this E92 for just $8,000 and get a wrenching. And if you don't have a big enough parking spot for the 335i, well then maybe you're thinking Mini. I know. The Mini Cooper S was supercharged. I mean, that's what the S stood for, right? Or was it Supercar Slayer? No, that would be 2 S's. But only the first generation was actually supercharged. But the second generation, it ditched the supercharger and gained a turbo under the hood. And so not only did that bump horsepower up to 172 horses, but it also made it way more tunable. And so with an exhaust, intake, and a tune, you're looking at 220 horsepower all day, every day. And if more power is a must, because I know some of you guys, you can upgrade your turbo and other engine components, and you'd be rocking 270, 280, even 300 horsepower. Isn't that enough?
Please, sir. I want some more.
Because the best thing is that all of this can be done for less than 10K. And you know why? Because the Mini is actually cheap. And you can find one for less than, can't even believe I'm saying this, $5,000. It's cheap, it's a turbo, it has great gas mileage, it's versatile. What's not to love? Well, basically it's a BMW, so its technology is overcomplicated and a bit unreliable. But luckily it's so cheap you'll have the cash to spare to keep that thing running. So go out right now and pick up a Mini. Tune it and hoon it. Tune it and hoon it, Tune it and hoon it, If you'd never like to hear me sing again and you'd like to support the manuals, go check out our limited edition Ideal T. Save the manuals, we're running low on supplies, so get them while they last. Otherwise, you can tune it in, hoon it, And as far as the Mini goes, to sum it up, it's not just fun, but it's also very fuel efficient. Because it's small, it has good returns at the pump and lots of smiles on the back roads. So maybe you haven't thought about a Mini until now. And I bet another car that you probably haven't thought about that comes from South Korea. No, it's not a Stinger. No, it's not a Veloster N, which is such a rad car. But today, we're talking about the budget Korean banger, the Hyundai Genesis Coupe 2-liter turbo. We all know the Veloster is known as Hyundai's most sporty car. A few years back though, the king of Korea was the Hyundai Genesis Coupe, offered in both a naturally aspirated V6 or a turbski 4-cylinder. And the coolest thing about it is that they were both. And the thing that I find fascinating is that the two different engine options were made to compete with two different cars. Yeah, the V6 was actually aiming to compete with the 370Z and the G37, while the turbo 4-cylinder, that sneaky little four-banger, was going after the FRS and the BRZ. With either engine, they're great cars and they give competitors a good run for their money. And both love to slide around parking lots and tear up the competition at Formula Drift events. So, which engine is the one to have if you could only pick one? Well, here at Ideal, we would steer you towards the 2-liter turbski. Yes, both motors do have their perks. And the sprightly little four-banger pumps out a major 210 horsepower from the factory. But that's not gonna cut it for people like you and me. Not at all. And luckily, there are turbo kits that are pushing the Genesis to brand new heights. How does 450 horsepower sound? Sufficient? Sure, but for some people, that still is not enough. And luckily, that engine has more to give. You can squeeze 750 horsepower out of these bad boys. What? And for just under 6K, you can start building out your dream drift missile. So if you're looking to spool up and slide out, I'd definitely consider the Hyundai Genesis Coupe. But, and there's always a but, if you gotta go fast and turns are not the issue, then check out the Dodge Neon SRT4. Yeah, that's right. I'm suggesting you go out and buy a Dodge Neon.
It's not a Neon. Look at the title. It says SRT4 on the title.
I mean, the base is just a sad little car. Instead, you gotta buy the Neon SRT4. Why? Because it's powered by one of the best 4-cylinder engines of all time. And if you wanna see more of the greatest 4-cylinder engines, watch this Ideal vid. Now, the SRT4 is highly tunable and heavily used in drag racing. And on the road, it can be made into a pretty lethal sleeper. Pumping out 230 horses from the factory, these things are not a slouch, even in stock form. And if you keep the internal stock, but you modify a bunch of other stuff, you're looking at 500 horsepower before you have any issues with the stock internals. And then if you fully build the engine, well, you're looking at double that amount of horsepower. 4 figures, baby. What's that? Did somebody just say torque steer? Torque steer? Is there an echo? Unfortunately, most of these cars have been used and abused. And so it's pretty hard not to find one that's already falling apart and just rotting away. But there are a couple of good examples still left. And you can still pick them up for under 5,000 bucks. Just make sure that you get an 04 or newer because the 03 had just a little bit less power. And one of the best parts is since the SRT4 came from the factory without mufflers, you won't even have to spend any money on exhaust. And if that sounds too good to be true, what if I were to tell you the next car on this list sounds like this? It must be the Fiat 500 Abarth. Yeah, I know it's tacky and not very spacious, but just listen to me. If that sound doesn't get you excited to drive, I don't know what will. Yes, the Fiat 500 and its most civilian models are made for city dwellers. I get that. But man, did they knock it out of the park or what with the Abarth? It's fun, quick, and quirky. And I think it's perfect to get around as a grocery getter. And you even can get red interior to match your lipstick. How perfect. Except I don't wear lipstick. Liar! Unfortunately, the bark is louder than the bite because this thing was capped at 160 horsepower. And so I think most of us were left wanting a little bit more zip out of our cappuccinos. And luckily it has a turbo, so the aftermarket has come to the rescue. And it's actually pretty easy to squeeze at least 200 horsepower out of these things. But as we know, for some people, 200 horsepower just isn't enough. And so there's a German company that has pumped an Abarth up to a staggering 404 horsepower out of the stock 1.4 liter engine. And that is badass. And even though I doubt that you can have one of these for 10 grand, you can pick up a stock Abarth for right around 5. And that gives you plenty of room for some modifications. Sounds pretty ideal, right? So you tell me, what would be your ideal turbo car for under 10K? For me, I'd have to go with the Genesis Coupe or 335 if I planned on making the most power. But if I wanted kind of just a spirited driver, I'd go with that WRX. So you know what? That would be my ideal car out of these. And also let us know down below which ideal cars under 10K that come with a turbo that we left off this list. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. And if you disliked it, don't just hit the dislike button once, hit it twice. Really let us know you disliked this video. My name is Brad Danger. This is Ideal Media, and keep living the ideal lifestyle.